bowls before you eat anything off of them? Okay, whoops. Tried to close the cabinet door on the tiki-taki people. My apologies. Okay, so I'm leaving you in here, William, but I'm not sure for how long because this is sort of silly. I hope I didn't hurt you. You're okay, Louis? Good. Glad to hear it. All right, as soon as I get my tea ready to go, we will read a little, and we'll read from the book Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. Caste, the origins of our discontent. We're learning about the pillars of caste, and we have now been reading about the first pillar, which is divine will and laws of nature. The second pillar, heritability. The third pillar has to do with marriage and mating, controlling marriage and mating. And we learned a new word yesterday, endogamy. That's a fancy word for restricting who can marry who. So we're in that chapter, or in that learning about that pillar number 3, endogamy and the control of marriage and dating. So here we go. While I'm reading, you're allowed to have conversations, but if you're rude, people will either not engage with you or show you the door if they have that ability. You can also continue to answer the question of the day, which is, how big were you as a baby? Simple question, straightforward question. And we begin. It was the caste system, through the practice of endogamy, essentially state regulation of people's romantic choices over the course of centuries, that created and reinforced races by permitting only those with similar physical traits to legally mate. Combined with bans on immigrants who were not from Europe for much of American history, endogamy laws had the effect of controlled breeding, of curating the population of the United States. This form of social engineering served to maintain the superficial differences upon which the hierarchy was based. Race, ultimately becoming the result of who was officially allowed to procreate with whom. Endogamy ensures the very difference that a caste system relies on to justify inequality. What we look like, wrote the legal scholar Ian Haney Lopez, the literal and racial features we in this country exhibit is to a large extent the product of legal rules and decisions. This pillar of caste was well enough understood and accepted that as late as 1958, a Gallup poll found that 94% of white Americans disapproved of marriage across racial lines. You know the Negro race is inferior mentally, a Southern physician told researchers back in 1940, expressing a commonly held view. Everyone knows that. Excuse me. Everyone knows that, and I don't think God meant for a superior race like the whites to blend with an inferior race. Oh, how lovely. As this was the prevailing sentiment for most of the country's history, an unknowable number of lives were lost due to this defining pillar of caste, the presumed breach of which triggered the most publicized cases of lynchings in America. The protocol was strictly enforced against lower caste men and upper caste women, while upper caste men, the people who wrote the laws, kept full and flagrant access to lower caste women, whatever their age or marital status. In this way, the dominant gender of the dominant caste, in addition to controlling the livelihood and life chances of everyone beneath them, eliminated the competition for its own women, and in fact for all women. For much of American history, dominant caste men controlled who had access to whom for romantic liaisons and reproduction. And I think romantic liaisons is really putting that too nicely. This inverted the natural order, the natural expression of manhood, total freedom for one group and life or death policing of another, and served further to reinforce caste boundaries and the powerlessness of subordinated men who might dare try to protect their own daughters, wives, sisters, women. Oh, yay. Hang on, folks. I've apparently been given a restriction on my tiki-taki. Thank you for pinning that because they've already just now given me a restriction on the tiki-taki live. Please find me if you want to stay on the live. Please find me over on YouTube, Lynn Shuck, and we will continue because I think they didn't like the L word. So, whatever. At the same time, it reminded everyone in the hierarchy of the absolute power of dominant caste men. This was a cloud that hung over the lives of everyone consigned to the lowest caste for most of the time that there has been a United States of America. This is about to get brutal. If you need to leave, I understand. In the mid 1830s in Grand Gulf, Mississippi, white men burned a black man alive and stuck his head on a pole at the edge of town for all to see as a lesson to the men in subordinate caste. The black man had been tortured and beheaded after he stood up and killed the dominant caste man who owned his wife and was in the habit of sleeping with her, according to a contemporaneous account. As he faced death for taking an extreme and assuredly suicidal step to protect his wife in that world, the doomed husband said that he believed he should be rewarded in heaven for it.